Hi, this is Maggie, and welcome back to Leadership Insights. This is actually the last episode under the old concept, Leadership Insights, as we're in full swing transitioning to play it by your rules. In this episode, I sat down with Diego Adame. Diego and I share a few milestones. We both worked for Procter & Gamble, and we did the same MBA program. And then Diego joined the Lego Foundation. So in this episode, we talk about play and why it's really important, not only for kids, but also for us, for adults. We need to bring it back into our lives, in our free time and also at work. And also as Diego is entering into a career transition, we also reflect about how he manages it, including defining clear non-negotiables. And those non-negotiables point him the way. So tune in, enjoy the full episode. You're listening to Leadership's Insights, Navigating Career and Life. I am Maggie Rombach, your host, bringing inspiring stories and practical advice on leadership, career development, and work-life balance. So hello and welcome to Leadership's Insights, brought to you by Maggie's Mindset Mastery Academy. And today, as always, I'm super excited to have another inspiring leader with me, Diego Adame. And yes, Diego, I give it right to you. Tell us a little bit about your story. What's your leadership story? What brought you here?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks you so much for having me here, Maggie. Just based on the conversation before the podcast, I'm sure we're going to have a great chat. My leadership story, it starts in Mexico. I am originally from Mexico. I studied economics. I worked in the private sector. We also share a background working for Procter & Gamble. Then I work in another company. And at some point, I realized that that was not for me. I wanted to do something that was more aligned with what I wanted to do, of bring some positive social change in the world. So I moved to Switzerland to do a master degree that also we both did an MBA focused in international development. And I think for me, that's one of probably my biggest transition so far in my career, like really changing drastically the sector that I was working to work in the social sector, learn about it, and start working in international development, first in a nutrition international NGO. And for the last 10 years, I've been in the Lego Foundation. And it's difficult to separate my career from my leadership journey because I think they go hand in hand. Like the more formal leadership probably has developed the most in the last 10 years at the Lego Foundation, because that's when I have had more leadership responsibilities. But I do think like leadership, you really build it throughout your life, in your family, with friendships in school. And right now I'm in a place that also my professional life is a lot about leadership, but I do think that the journey is way broader than just the jobs that I have.
Thank you. And actually, I didn't recall that we both have a P&G background. That's amazing. I'm always learning new things. And also, I
Maybe
think
that's another
Procter,
podcast.
and also Procter, I think they're particularly good in building leadership into like people or encouraging people to take on leadership from early career starts. So I think it's maybe indeed the journey starts already there, if not even before.
Absolutely. I'm always amazed to think how when you are a 22, 23-year-old, you feel like you're the most important person in the world and you have very little, but they make you believe that you're so important and you're so crucial. But there's absolutely something to learn about that, having that sense of ownership. And when I go back and my recent posts in the Lego Foundation, it's always about giving people a sense of ownership. And for me, that's one of the key parts of leadership, to make sure that everyone feels that accountability, but that pride of the part of the work that they own, that they can control and they can decide. And it's true. I had never reflected that. Probably that comes back from my P&G days.
There's actually a few things that, I think I didn't appreciate at the time as much, but now I'm really realizing it was actually really well designed. The other bit that came up recently, I don't know if you recall that, when you judge advertisement or anything creative that is proposed, what I remember, which I think is really powerful, is two procedures that are established. One is first judge only with your gut feeling. Don't put the brain on, just go with your gut. And also the most junior person speaks first. I think those two habits I felt were extremely powerful to do exactly what you described, to give the junior people the feeling they have actually something to say and to build the confidence. So, yeah.
And I wonder if it's so interesting because in which country were you at PNG? In Germany?
Geneva,
In Geneva, of
already
course.
Geneva in Switzerland.
I was in Mexico, and I'm sure there's already a different dynamic there. And also, you were in advertising, probably marketing. I was in finance. So I'm sure there are two completely different organizations. I don't relate to what you say. Like, I don't remember it being that way, that the most junior person said first. I kind of remember the opposite.
Most junior person speaks first.
Most junior person. Yeah. But one thing that came to mind that also became a big part of my life is 80/20. Always like don't waste time in the small things. And I think that is one thing that I definitely learned from PNG. And I remember at the time because you're a kid and they were like anything that is under $2,000, don't spend time. And I was like, but that's so much money. Yeah, but then you realize when you look at the turnover of the company, you're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to put all the energy in things. And this was just in a matter of transactions of finance, but in general, don't waste time in 20% of the things that are not adding 80% of the things that are adding probably 20% of the value instead of focusing on the few ones that are creating the most value.
Absolutely. And we're kind of going a little bit off script, but this is fantastic because
Yeah,
we've
sorry
been
about
talking. No, no,
that.
no, that's great. It's actually, I'm going to, after the summer, I'm going to revamp the podcast anyway. So I'll be even more off script from there on. So whatever. Um, no, but what else came up just now? Ah, yeah, because recently I've been talking a lot about transferable skills and people moving cross sectors. So I'm sure all what you learned there in Mexico in finance in the private sector, I'm sure that all of that helped you then now in, I think you were at Gain, right? So like in the nutrition
Yeah.
sector and then also at Lego, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's part of my career and the way that I operate or work in organizations that I always tend to move a lot in organizations. If I think back in PNG, I was there for 2 years, and in 2 years I was like in the central marketing for sales. Then I was asked to move to Vela when it was acquired. Then I was asked to move to Gillette. So in only 2 years, I had like three very different roles, and I really enjoy that. So every time I'm in a new job, I know that I'm going to end in a very different place from where I started. But uh, but I also know in today's world that is the norm. That there's no longer like one fixed job that you're going to be doing the same job for 3, 5, 10, 20 years. But it's very dynamic, and it's important to know and to learn from those transitions and be ready that want to enjoy it when you have something now another way that I think about it, when you have something great going on at work, enjoy it because it's not going to last long. Because the way that the world moves now, it's very difficult that you will have like the same job, the same team, the same projects for more than 3, 4 years. I think it's very difficult.
Absolutely. And it's so true. I've been through so many restructurings and transitions now. It's the new normal, It's just, okay, when's the next wave? And the next wave is already building up. So, but it's also in a way funny you say that because both of us have been on our current jobs for more than 10 years. So it can happen.
Yes, that's true. But I don't know how it has been for you. For me, I feel like in my 10 years, the Lego Foundation, I've had probably 5 or 6 very different jobs.
Hmm. Yeah, same
So
for me.
I had like to create strategy from headquarters, go to open and establish an office in a country office, develop a global strategy, launch an accelerator program for startups, and then work together with the corporate, which in some ways are very different roles. I don't think I could have stayed for 10 years if I was doing the same role.
Yeah. No, for me, it's similar. I moved around quite a bit internally, not to the field, but within HQ to different roles. So yeah, also I think that would have been, and after a while, it would have been maybe tough to stay excited.
Yes.
Cool. So that was already super insightful. Let's touch on the key question because I'm sure we'll come back to that because part of me wants to ask you what is the most amazing thing working for Lego? I mean, half our house is Lego. So I hold that and see like if that comes up at one point. But just Lego Foundation seems to be that dream place to be. But let's get to the typical question and see how that connects with your journey. So the first one is around your top three guiding principles, both in career or personal life. What are those?
Yeah, and but that I am at a point in my life where they are aligned. When my personal values and my career values are aligned, because I think that's not always the case. And the ones that I keep coming back to are one, empathy, two, curiosity, which are in some ways are very aligned or related, curiosity and empathy. And the third one is social justice. And with social justice comes also being aware of the privilege that I have and the opportunities that I've had, and how can I make it better for some other people that did not have the same opportunities.
That's nice. So giving back, but also empathy and curiosity. I've been looking also into the future of work and how work will change with AI and all of that. And what comes up is that exactly those two skills will be, I mean, it's not only a value, it's also a skill, right? That those will be really critical to stay human and stay, complementary and add value, even when AI is doing a lot of other stuff. So cool. Seems
Yeah, and as I was saying, they really complement each other, because usually when I think about curiosity, I think about like this willingness to learn and desire, like lifelong learning, always trying to be better and learn new things. But also curiosity is also about learning about other people, learning about other people's perspectives, learning about other people's experiences. And that's when it takes you to empathy. And so that's, in some ways, there are two sides of the same, but I don't know. I like to keep them separate to remind myself that those are things that I want to, whatever I'm going to do professionally or socially or personally, that those are two things that I always want to remind myself, to be curious and to be empathetic.
I love that because they really resonate with me too, but I never thought of them as two sides of the same coin. And I think you're right. So that's cool. So
Yeah.
let's go to next one. Which accomplishment in your life are you most proud of and why?
That's a tricky one. I think the one that gives me the most joy and energy from a professional standpoint is setting up the Lego Foundation in Mexico. And I think it's also because there's a personal connection there, being from Mexico and going back and establishing the foundation and creating a bit of a movement around not necessarily the Lego Foundation, yes, the Lego Foundation, but also what the Lego Foundation supports, which is play and the importance of play in children's lives. And in some ways, to me, it it feels like it was many things came together for me to be able to do that in a way that felt meaningful and that felt impactful, and that even now, spoiler alert, the Lego Foundation office in Mexico is closed now because restructures and changes in strategy. But even going back to Mexico, whenever I go back to Mexico, I realize that there's some of those seeds that me and the team there planted, that they are still popping up, and that there is still a lot of conversation about play, and there are lots of people that are doing things around play, and that the government's still talking about play. And I don't, it really fills me with pride to see that something that we were a team of three in some very intense years of work, that I mean, that's what we want in the social sector, right? We want sustainability. You want things to affect systems and change culture. And every time I go and see in the news or conversation or something that there's referring to some of the terms that we introduced, or they're talking about things that were not talked about many years ago, it's just, it gives you so much pride. And I can only, when I think back those years, I'm just proud and excited of what we did there.
Wow. And it's so true. It's so important, the notion of play, because, when I had my after hour MBA program, which was in the same year, I spent almost a year with UNICEF in child protection. And of course, also at the ICRC, at the Red Cross, we work also with children in conflict areas and play. It's just, even in those difficult places, if you can find to still create space where kids can play, it's just so important.
Yeah, and even more now that there's more and more recognition, especially in those kind of settings, like that kids are going through so much trauma and distress, how powerful it could be for them to just have some time to play and forget about it and build skills and be able to be resilient and cope with everything that's happening. And yeah, I can talk forever about play. I'm definitely a convert, and I am convinced that play is just essential for children and for adults, I have to say. So when we talk about leadership, that's a key aspect of my leadership as well.
Okay, so you also worked on, I'm curious now. Curiosity is also my value. So you also, is that part of the Lego Foundation that I also start, because I think you're right, we sometimes forget the inner child, and then everything is so serious. So are there also programs where you work with adults to bring back play?
Not necessarily, but the thing with the Lego Foundation is that the Lego Foundation celebrates play. So if you are playful, it's celebrated. So it's not looked down on people being like, why are you not working? Why are you playing? So that gave me the opportunity to explore more of that and to, in some ways, the Lego Foundation gave me the words for, or the definitions for what learning through play, as we call it, is. I think I have always been quite playful in my leadership style. When I was a teacher, I also tried to be playful, but I never ever thought about it as play. Also, when I was working at Gain and I was reflecting with a former colleague, I was always bringing play in some way or another. But coming to Lego Foundation, then I started realizing that no, actually, what I was doing is a lot of play. So that plus encouragement from the organization and the brand that we have, I think I have been able to step up my playful approach to work and in the way that I manage teams and in the dynamics with the team, and yeah, and turn the our workday into a playful experience. Not all the time, but as much as possible to have more play. And because I do believe that it makes a big difference.
That's amazing because most companies have values now, and they're important values like compassion, trust. I should know our four values by heart, but I don't anyway. But that you barely ever see play, and maybe you need to chip in a bit of play to lighten up things. And that doesn't mean things are not serious and not efficient, but you can still do them in a funnier way that makes it a bit lighter to do them, right?
Yeah, and I always see play more as a means to an end than an end. So, for example, when we talk about curiosity and empathy, one of the best ways to exercise curiosity and empathy is through play. Because when you as an adult start playing with your teammates, let's say, and you have to be silly and you have to be dancing or be out of your comfort zone, so many barriers come down. And the relationship that you have with your teammates from that moment really changes. And the hierarchies really dissolve. So, and that's when you also start building that empathy because you start understanding the other and you are taking down your barriers or being a bit more vulnerable. And I have seen that that really changes the dynamic of a team, the dynamics of a team, because you start to understand others better and you have some shared experiences and you we're out there being silly in a way that you never thought you would be, and it just it changes the relationship and the trust and the sense of a safe space in a team.
Yeah, I really like that. Got me already thinking how it gives me so many ideas, but yeah, I think it needs to be brought to more companies. We need to bring play back to everybody.
Yes.
Cool. So, next one. When you're hiring or promoting individuals, what qualities matter most beyond technical skills? I guess play comes up. Let's see.
I wouldn't ask for someone to have play. I think that's great, but I also, if I want to convert others, I want to make sure that others who probably don't believe in play then realize that it's great.
Mhm.
But I think two things that I would look into besides from technical skills, probably not surprisingly, one is that willingness to learn. That even if they don't know something, but they want to learn, and maybe that comes back to the curiosity. And the second one will be that they are self-reflective. I, in my experience, I really enjoy working with people that can go back, reflect on what they are doing, and acknowledge when something can be done better, or if well, there's always a different way of doing things, and to reflect on the way we interact with other humans. So for me, that's a big part. And when I find someone that doesn't have that, I know that at least for me and the way that I live, it will not be a match because I need to make sure that we are humble enough and that we are empathetic enough to know that we are just one part of the puzzle.
Yeah. It's I mean, knowing yourself, self-awareness, self-reflection, it comes out as a strong, I start seeing patterns with all the people I talk to. So this comes
Oh
out really
yeah,
strongly. And it also what makes me think, I think the absolute, like the top of self-reflection, self-awareness, if you know yourself really well, that's the point where you can also start laughing about yourself. When you do your like your
yes,
typical mistakes or like you go into your pattern and then we come back to play, right? Because then, it becomes
absolutely.
lighter.
That's funny. I never thought about that connection, but yeah, I think you're completely right. That self-awareness, self-reflection leads to being confident and being willing to take risks and be more vulnerable and have more
Mm.
fun.
Yeah. Also, that's great skills to look for. So we talked about a little bit that actually I thought you said that before. I didn't pick it up, but I thought it was really powerful that you said your personal and work values are aligned now. I think that's amazing if you reach that point. And that fits to the next question, maybe. So when you think about maintaining a work-life balance in today's fast-paced world, is that helping or what else is helping you to do that?
I think different things are helping. Living in a Scandinavian country, living in Denmark, definitely helps because I mean that's the norm, and I love that here, and that's what people say, and we kind of don't believe it when we don't live here, that it's really not look doesn't look well when you are working too much here, and people are
Amazing.
like, you don't have a life, or are you not good enough at your job, or so it really happens. And if you go to the to the Lego headquarters at 4:05 p.m., probably 5% of the 3,000 people. I don't know how many people work there, probably 3,000 people. There, it's empty, and people really take work-life balance seriously. And I think a big part of that is this notion that work is only one part of your life, and that part of your life you dedicate to work. But there are so many more things in your life, and it could be kids if you're a parent, but it could also be hobbies, it could be associations, it could be volunteering. But everyone has something else going on in life than work, and I think that helps a lot. So the way that the system is designed is so that people can lead those different parts of their life. So if they have kids, it is designed that if parents want to leave at 2 p.m., they can leave at 2 p.m., be with their kids, and then they connect back for a couple of hours overnight. But also, if you want to be in sports club or in an association or taking like classes, they're done so that they happen in the afternoons and they're subsidized by the government. So it gives everything to make sure that people live a fuller life. I don't know if fuller life is the right expression, but that there's more than work in people's life. And it's extremely, extremely privileged, I know, because I also know the other side of this. I know what it's like living, working in Mexico, where people work 12, 14 hours per day, and then they will punch me if I was to say like, oh, you should have other things, associations, hobbies, and because it's not as simple as that, because it's a lot about the culture, the
Mm.
working culture of the country, and I'm lucky enough that I have that.
Yeah,
So
you really want to make me go and live in Scandinavia. Because I think all Scandinavian countries are pretty good at that, right?
yes, I think that's shared across all of them. But I do think that having something else going on in life that you're passionate about, because I think when you're really passionate about something, you tend to find more time for it.
Mm.
Uh, Even if the conditions are not the best and the culture is not the best, sometimes if you really want to do something else, then you find a way. So that helps. And in a very practical, small thing that has helped me a lot for work-life balance, it sounds almost silly, but having a separate phone, I always have a work phone and a personal phone. My work phone is shut down when I'm done working. It's shut down in the weekends. I don't take it on holidays. And that helped me so much. Again, it's a very small thing, but
I actually think that's a pretty big thing because it is also an investment, right? In the sense you then have to pay for your own phone. So it's tempting to just stick with what the company's giving you, but then it buys you freedom and disconnection. So that's great.
and setting those boundaries early on. So whenever I start with a new boss or with a new team, I always from the start say, I don't work on weekends unless it's something truly, truly urgent. And my phone will be off. So don't even try to. And when I'm on leave, I'm on leave. Don't
But
you
see,
cannot.
I think this comes with experience and maturity, like setting boundaries. And, I
Yes.
agree. I think that's so important. You set your rules, you stick to them, and then even like your boss might not always like it, but that's just your boundary. So there's not much they can do about it, right?
Yeah, fully agree.
That's so cool. I like that. I had something else coming up, but now it disappeared. But this is so inspiring because this is so important. Ah, yeah, that's what was coming up. I was thinking back at Procter and Gamble. That was also here. I don't know if it's the same in Mexico, but you leave at 7 o'clock, and then people choke if you work half days. So
Yes.
this whole mentality. And at that time, I'm a horse rider. And at that time, I committed to have a demi-pension. Basically, that means you pay the half of the stable fees, and then you basically can do with, like, you can go horse riding 3 times a week as if it was your own horse. So that meant, well, I would go once on the weekends and twice during the week. And I committed to that, so I had to go. And I think I usually was riding like 7 to 8, so I had to leave at 6 p.m. at the latest, which now, I mean, that's compared to Denmark, that's really late. But at the time that felt quite early. But because I committed to that and because it was my passion, I just made it happen. And that was actually, I really needed that to keep sane during those times.
Yeah, it was exactly the same for me. I remember I started every day at 7 a.m. and when I left at 7 p.m., I was the first one and people would give me a really hard time that I was like working part-time. And but I think there's also something about the way the organizations set their incentive structure. Because for all the great things that PNG has and all the learnings that it has given us, I also think it creates a very toxic environment
Yeah.
because the way that they promote people that is putting everyone at the same level against each other, and it's not about just doing more than you were already expected to do, but doing more than anyone else in your level. So it creates all sorts of dynamics that everyone wants to overwork and step on each other's toes, and creates like a very, very unhealthy working culture because people end up working insane amount of hours. And I wish, well, I don't know. My first day at P&G, I was an intern. I was not even full time. I was an intern. I came to work, I don't know what time. And then I ended up staying until 6 in the morning because it was the financial year closing. And
Yes.
when I left the office at 6 in the morning, the finance director was coming in and she said like, "Oh, see you in 3 hours." I was like, "What? What is this? What am I doing?" I mean, that should have been my red flag, but it wasn't. I just
Yeah.
kept going. But
But I think even within P&G, you have subcultures, because at one point I moved from fine fragrances because I actually came with the Vela acquisition. You mentioned Vela before.
yeah,
So I moved from fine fragrances into the CEMEA region, so Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa for feminine hygiene. And there, when I joined, the whole team was young parents. And they had a different culture. They were all super hardworking. They were super smart. They were really committed, and they left all at 5:30 to pick up their kids. And as you said, yes, sometimes they locked in the evenings if they had to finish up things. But for me, that was such like a current of fresh air because I was like, okay, even within such a toxic environment in general, you can have sub bubbles that just, and because they collectively acted that way, it became their subnorm. And then, everybody else could kind of join that game. And that was really great.
and I'm sure the manager also have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
role to
of
play
course.
there to allow that to happen. And again, that talks about the importance of choosing the right manager when you have the opportunity to choose it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's move on. So, could you share one valuable lesson from private life, whether it's like parenthood, sports, arts, whatever it might be, that also helped you at work?
Yeah, and I think what comes to mind is I am someone who loves challenges more in both in my personal and professional life, but more in my personal life. And for many years, I always, every year I have a challenge. I used to do challenges for my birthdays. And whenever you talk to me, you can ask me what challenges you have going on. And I will tell you I have X number of challenges. Many times they are physical, many times they're about running. But I think what those challenges help me in my professional life is having something that is time bound, that I know it will happen. It has an end date. There's a clear milestone. There is a plan to achieve that. And then there's a sense of achievement. I think in today's world, working world, it's so difficult to have any tangible measure of, oh, I achieved this, or because everything is a bit abstract and you are a small part of a bigger thing. And I think what challenges have given me is that to know that all the time I am achieving something. Uh, and that's a luxury that we don't have as often, or at least I haven't had as often as I would want to at work. So it gives me that. And it gives me that planning horizon. And sometimes my challenges are for the next month, sometimes for the next year, sometimes it's for 2 years or whatever. So in some ways, there are like mini projects that I have in my personal life always running that keep me, and going back to your point, they keep me active and thinking of other things that are not work. So I need to stop working because I need to achieve whatever challenge I have set myself.
That's great. And you know what comes up? There's also books, there's the concept of flow. There are also books about it.
Yeah.
And part of the flow principles is exactly that, to have something time bound with concrete outcomes. And I think that's why video games are so addictive, because they're extremely good at that. You have like one little task you do, and then you achieve something, you get the next level, blah, 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 and then, you keep going and you get this state. So I did a podcast on flow. If you haven't listened to it
Yeah.
yet, listen to it. It's really cool because I think we can bring that principle to work if we set a few things into place, and that can help us to be more efficient.
I didn't listen to that one, but I will definitely will because it also connects back to play. I mean, a lot of when play has its biggest learning value, it's connected to flow theory. When you really are in that sense of flow, of like the right level of challenge, the right level of at the right skill, the right challenge, it's when kids and adults learn the most. So yeah, I can totally see that.
Sure, I hadn't connected it to learning, but you're right. Yes, yeah. Great. So this is the last one from this part of questions. So what is one significant role model for you? Who is it, and why would he or she be your role model?
This is going to be extremely cheesy, so I give you a warning. But I do think my husband, Tim, would be my role model. And I would say I think we found each other because we both acknowledge where we are not so good at. And in that way, we complement each other really well. And and I can see how I have helped him in his personal and professional life with things that I bring that he probably doesn't have as strong. And the opposite is certainly true, that I so much of who I am at work now is so different because these last 11 years that we've been together, I have learned from him, and I have learned from watching, but also from hearing feedback and bouncing ideas. And that has been, yeah, I think that has been really special. And one example that comes to mind, I am someone that is always driving for speed and efficiency. I want to move quickly. I want to do things fast and get to the result as quickly as possible. And Tim in some ways is the opposite. Tim will always find the right time to do things in the right way with a strong focus on quality. And he's all about how do you make the best possible experience. And I think we have put these things together. And now I see myself not rushing to things and pausing a little bit more and being like, this could be a little bit better and this could be a better experience. But I also can see him sometimes pushing himself, being like, no, we don't have to wait so long. We can, and I think we meet each other in the middle, but it's a constant learning and I keep learning. And this is just one example, but there are so many things where I learn so much from him just by observing and working. We also love to do projects together. We always have a project together. So it's, yeah, I'm lucky that my role model lives so close to me.
That's so beautiful. And you know what I also I hear again a bit your value of self-reflection there because you kind of figured out how you're different and how you're complementary, and that kind of makes it possible to have this harmony, right?
Yes, I mean, it might also be midlife crisis. I don't know. Not midlife crisis, but
Midlife opportunity.
the life opportunity, I love it. But yeah, being in my early 40s, there's so much reflection going on in life. And right now, being in a transition from work, it's all sorts of other layer of reflection. So yeah, I think these days or these years have been a lot of self-reflection.
That was the perfect transition to the next part, which is about transitions.
There you go.
Because, yeah, so I realized, particularly talking to people in midlife, and that's actually one thing I'm also, I'm going to change gear after the summer bit, and I'll be also much more talking about midlife opportunity because I really want to reframe it. Because what I did notice is that most people that have had whatever type of leadership story, as you said before, there's barely anybody who has done the same stuff for 20 years. So almost all of us have transitioned from one thing to the other at some point, either internally in one organization, as you mentioned in P&G, you change every 2 years, but also sectors. So you transition quite a bit. So is there anything that stood out for you that really helped you? Or like a tip you would have for listeners if they think about transitioning, where to look?
Yeah, and I'm pausing because there's so much in my head right now, thinking about transitions. And as I myself going through this process, exiting the Lego Foundation and figuring out what's my next step, uh, I have been thinking a lot about transitions and What are the things to keep in mind? And some things pop up. One of them is probably before the transition. What I have found really useful is conversations like this one, where I get to talk to people about their experience with transition. And as you say, transition could mean very different things. We all have gone through different types of transitions in a personal or professional life, but trying to understand what are those common things that you see, or what is the value that you take personally, because we all have a different experience with transition. We all have a different way of dealing with it, but it's more of, again, that reflection of what does that mean to you. So when I had many conversations with people that have gone through professional transitions. And what I ended up doing was coming up with okay, what are my non-negotiables for this next transition? And some of them are very simple and straightforward. One of them is I don't want to move city or country. I live in Copenhagen. I want to stay here. And that's for me is an absolute non-negotiable. Second one, again, for me, is very straightforward, but that's a personal thing, is I want to work somewhere that my job is making life better for people who are in a disadvantaged situation. So those are like my two core non-negotiables. And then I went into, okay, what's my next layer? And from those conversations and reflecting on my career and where I've been at my best, I realized things that I want to ensure is that I work for a leader that I admire. And for me, probably in the past, I have not put so much attention when I'm choosing a new role. What about my leader or my manager? But I truly want to work with someone visionary, someone that I truly admire. So that's for me is an important point. Second one is the people around me. And also through some of these conversations, but also some brainstorming with a career coach, I realized that I get a lot of energy and I think I am at my best when I am surrounded by people. And I don't mean that I need to manage people. I can, and that's usually what I do late in my career. But I want to be surrounded by people that we share some values and that we can bounce ideas and we can build together. So that's also important for me. And so when I start looking into jobs, having this framework helps me at least to filter, because sometimes I'll be like, no, that doesn't meet and this criteria, because it's very overwhelming when you're in this point of like, I could work anywhere. It is very difficult to then decide where do I start. But then where I have like these four very simple criteria, that reduces a lot the possibilities, and then I can focus more and put all my energy into jobs that actually are meeting some of those criteria. And this is where I am at the moment. I keep telling people I'm in a privileged situation that I have some months that I can look for a job, but I'm still employed by the foundation. So it is great. And as I say during this time, I can look for dream jobs and I can look for jobs that meet every single criteria. And as we move forward, I know that if I don't find something, I will have to loosen a little bit some of the criteria, and I will have to decide which are the criteria that are, well, I already defined my non-negotiables. So those ones are the non-negotiables, but maybe the other ones I will give up something, and that's okay. But I can start with the dream jobs, and then I will start working my way depending on how the situation goes, because I also know that in today's world it's not easy to go and find your dream job, because if it's normally difficult, and now it's even more difficult.
But I think, first of all, I think this is super inspiring. I love that the short list of non-negotiables. And, first of all, I'm looking forward to seeing on LinkedIn when you update your dream job, because, knowing what you want and what you need is already the first step to making it possible that you find it. Because as you say, it's so difficult even to know what you actually absolutely want. But this concept of non-negotiables, I think this is really powerful. And I would add one thing to that. So when I did my transition in 2013, I came up with a tool. I called it a passion meter. So basically, I was just given a
Okay.
blank piece of paper and I would put up passionate things and down things I really hate. Like meetings for the sake of meetings, report writing for the sake of report writing, all this stuff. It's just like, pfft. But sometimes it also helps to be clear on the things you really, the non-negotiables also on the low side. These things you just don't even want to go there. And then you have the middle ground where you can explore.
Yeah, that also reminds me, an exercise I did. I think another moment of a lot of self-reflection for many of us was the start of the pandemic when we were all like questioning life. What are we doing here? And I remember I was working with a great career coach, and she tasked me to each day for a month write down the three things that brought me joy at work. So I did that for a month or more, I can remember. But then at the end of the month, I had 90 things that brought me joy. Now with AI it will be a lot easier, but then try to group them. And when I did that exercise without even realizing, that's when I saw that so much of my joy comes from interacting with other people. And that helped me to build like this criteria that I have now that I need to work with people because I am not someone that gets joy working on my own and doing my own thing. So that's a useful exercise in case someone is looking for some inspiration. The other thing that you reminded me that I also keep coming back these days, in one of the conversations with a former boss, he told me you should go for the job that makes your heart beat. And it sounds very simple, but it's so true. And it has been so useful because you always know your gut feeling is always there and you know if a job is the right one or not. And sometimes something looks shiny because it's more money, but maybe it doesn't make your heart beat. And I really want to prioritize something that makes my heart beat.
That's great. And so what comes up for me now is when I did my transition, I talked to a career coach and she said also align it with your values, make sure it's aligned with your
Mm.
values. Because that I guess that's what makes your heart beat. But so it's just a different angle to kind of say the same thing, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And I think that's really, to all the listeners, I do encourage you to take a pen and paper and start noting down the three things that bring you joy each day. I'll do that for months. I love that. And I already know that for me, it's people too. But you always discover something new. So let's see what I'll come up with. That's really great.
Yes.
So let's go to the fun bit, which is the quick fire burst section.
Okay.
So it goes like this. I fire a question at you and I challenge you to answer with one word and maybe two words,
Okay.
So ready?
Right.
Okay, here we go. Describe your leadership style in one word.
Adaptable.
Hmm. What's the key to successful teamwork?
Trust.
One must-read book.
I would say Sapiens.
Okay. I'm always getting new book recommendations. Fantastic. Type of dream job, if not your current one.
I would say teacher.
Mm. What would be your preferred superpower, like flying, teleporting, whatever it might be?
I had to, this is made up, but it's called empathesis.
Ooh, okay. What do
Can,
you do?
can I explain?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to have a superpower to be able to experience life in someone else's body
Hmm.
and brain, but while still me being me and being like, oh, this is how Maggie sees the world, perceives things, listens, and thinks. I think that would be fascinating. And
Wow.
when I some months ago, I asked ChatGPT, how would you call that superpower? And it came up with empathesis. So
Nice. I like that. And what are you most grateful for?
let's say family.
Yeah, so important. Wonderful. This was so rich. This went to so many places I didn't expect,
So
but that's
many
the
places.
beauty. Well, cool. So as we wrap this up, do you have one parting thought for your 18-year-old self or like anybody who's starting out today? What would be your tip or your advice to them?
I think know that the end goal is very flexible. Or what you think is most important will change. If I think of when I was 18 years old, probably I was looking more for money, and then I was looking more for positions of power, and then I was looking for social change. And it keeps changing, and be okay with that, that it's none of them are right or wrong as long as you have an end goal and a North Star. That's the important thing. To be patient. You are going to be doing this for so many years. Don't waste time in trying to get too quickly to any places. And three, don't burn any bridge.
Oh, wow. That I like those three a lot. That's great advice. Thank you so much. This was really inspiring. And it was just also really nice to catch up after all that time.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. And yeah, look forward to the new version and hearing more about transitions and what people are thinking and tips and tricks for navigating this that so many of us are going through.
Yeah, so I'll be going into my own transition soon. And with that transition, I really will focus even more on the transition side of things. So for all listeners, expect even more to come on that bit. But I want to hold on to some of those leadership questions as well, because I really feel that go together. You need both. You need the leadership and the transition thinking. So, let's see what shape it'll take. But as you say, you don't know what the future will be exactly, but keep your North Star and be flexible. I take your advice too.
Great.
Well,
Thank you
thanks
so
so
much.
much. Have a great day. And yeah,
You too.
bye.
Bye.
So that was it for today. Thanks for listening. And if you like this, subscribe and share it with anybody who might benefit from it too. And remember, leadership isn't a title, it's a mindset. And when you realign with what matters most to you and take one intentional step, you create ripples at work, at home, and in how you live. So pause, breathe, and begin. Because change always starts from within and with one little step. So what ripple are you creating today? Bye for now and see you next time.